People that grew up with abusive and strict parents, what is it like? I had a neighbor when I was kid, we were similar ages and played together. One evening, he sat on a small stool outside his house, lost in thought. When his father came out and asked him what he was doing, he said he was sun drying the moon. His father suddenly grabbed him and slapped him hard several times, scolding him for being insincere, and then kicked his back, making him stumble back inside the house. At that time, we were just 4 or 5 years old. I was stunned watching this and was deeply affected. I didn't understand what was wrong with sun drying the moon or what insincere meant. We were mischievous kids and used to get scolded and even punished sometimes, but such an experience as my playmate had was unheard of. It was the most violent scene I had witnessed at that time, leaving a psychological shadow on me, to the extent that I would avoid his father whenever I saw him. Later on, we often saw my playmate being taught by his father in the yard. Sometimes he was hung on a tree and beaten, sometimes tied to the garbage bin and whipped, and sometimes thrown into the flower bed and kicked. The scenes were too brutal, and the neighbors couldn't bear to watch, but when they tried to intervene and persuade him to stop, they were all scolded and sent back. We didn't understand the reason and thought it was because my playmate was mischievous. Later, I discovered that his father had a different way of thinking, one that was incomprehensible to us, and he had his own logic. In other words, in our eyes, he was completely unreasonable. He believed that boys should be beaten more when they were young because it was better for them to be beaten by him than to get into trouble in society and be beaten by others. He thought he was already showing mercy by avoiding critical areas during the beatings. He said kids couldn't understand reasoning at all, you could tell them something 1,000 times, and they still wouldn't remember, but one beating would make them remember. His catchphrase was a good person comes out from being beaten with a rattan stick, implying that new recruits needed to be beaten by veterans to be honest, tamed, and become capable and exceptional individuals. This kind of nonsensical logic, deeply rooted in his mind, made him firmly believe it, and he wouldn't listen to anyone's advice. I didn't know what my playmate's psychological journey was like. He used to play with us, shared his few toys, protected his companions from big dogs, and carried fallen playmates back home. However, because of his fear of his father, we distanced ourselves from him. Later, I saw how a once smart and lively child gradually became timid, then numb, and eventually turned rebellious and violent. By the time we were in elementary school, he was no longer afraid of getting beaten. Those shouts and physical punishments had no deterrent effect on him, and he even learned to dodge his father's punches and kicks. He was fearless of anyone and would engage in things like breaking windows, stealing, and bullying younger kids. In junior high, he started skipping classes and running away from home. Even though he was repeatedly brought back, he would run away again shortly afterward. He no longer feared his father, even though his father was still bigger and stronger. He would fight back with all his might. His surroundings were always filled with shady characters, smoking cigarettes, and dressed untidily. The neighborhood regarded him as a demon and warned their children not to get close to him. I don't know what his father was thinking at this time, but he clearly did not grow up to be the outstanding individual his father had envisioned. Not long after, I moved away. Before leaving, my playmate ran away from home again, and his mother sat crying at the doorstep, enduring his father's harsh scolding. Even after I had moved, I never saw him come back.